here, family photo here. Maybe he's just trying to get away for a bit, and what better destination than a deep-as-hell cave system with no means of seeing where you're going? At least, for a moment anyway. Just a few steps in, you require a LiDAR scanner. That's light detection and ranging for the record, and not a portable lie detector device. The scanner can produce millions of light points, physically mapping out the area, and this is how you get around. You aim your scanner and just freaking bathe this system. It's like the world's biggest game of light bright. It's quite captivating, producing an endless stream of dotted lights to navigate through the caves, and the dots change color based on your proximity, blue meaning far, and red meaning close, so it's good to keep that in mind when you need to find the correct way to go. I found it helpful to take a step back and retrace my steps to look for any dark spots I haven't covered, as that was likely the way I needed to go, though this is sort of a knock on the game itself. I also knew I was going the right way whenever the game would momentarily stutter to load a checkpoint. It's good to know that I'm progressing, but that sort of took me out of it. The scanner doesn't need batteries, by the way, so make liberal use out of the thing. Paint the town red, green, and blue. It's essentially the core mechanic of this game. You need to get out of this cavern system using the LiDAR scanner. There's not much else you can do but point, scan, and occasionally jump, which is needed to trek through some of the game's rockier territory. And soon you'll find upgrades to the scanner, including one where you can adjust the light stream's concentration for achieving better detail, a burst scanner that maps out a huge area directly in front of you but requires a charge time, a basic map function that lets you know where you've been, and later a vision filter that gives you, let's just call it Matrix Vision, because that's what it looks like to me. I thought this game was going to be a VR game when I first looked at it. I could see a game like this being potentially enhanced with it, and tell me the scanner goggles don't look like a VR headset. But no, you just need a computer to play it, and you can play it with the standard keyboard and mouse controls, or a gamepad. Maybe that was for the best, because as interesting as the game looks, the colors can get pretty intense when going nuts with the scanner, especially the burst ability. Though the Matrix mode makes it a little easier on the eyes should you find it distracting. Scanner Somber is very minimalistic otherwise. There's nothing else you need to do but simply escape this cavern system. There's no one to interact with, no other forms of collectibles, it's just you and your grocery scanner. Price check on these falling dumbasses. Not to say you won't be running into any interesting set pieces. There's a story in here told mostly through what you happen to discover through your escape. There's no voice acting, but the protagonist does occasionally speak to himself via these text boxes that insinuate there's something clearly ominous about these caverns, but it's never open on what that is. Is this really a deep cave, a secret chamber where demonic rituals took place, an abandoned mine shaft? It's left purposefully vague for, I guess, the sake of interpretation. I'll be honest, it felt a little tacked on. Not bad, but ultimately not needed. Scanner Somber already does enough, in my opinion, with its atmosphere. Play it with a pair of headphones and you'll hear what I mean. It's not a horror game per se, but it's certainly tense. Without your scanner, you can't see anything, which lets your mind do most of the work and assume the worst of the worst, and making it even worse is the near constant background noise. Could be far away, could be close by. Your very footsteps, an underground channel of water, or anytime your scanner decides to go haywire. Are you truly alone in this place? You better hope so, because I don't think this guy knows how to throw a punch, and you can't even sprint. Still, this is not a very long game. First time took me just over an hour and a half, and that was with a couple of plummets to my doom. The game offers a New Game Plus mode after completing it once, so you can start with all the upgrades from the get-go for the sake of speedrunning, which I did find some enjoyment out of, but I think there's no playthrough like the first playthrough, when you don't know what to expect. As such, and you know where I'm going with this, Scanner Somber is more of an experience than a straight-out game, something you give a shot and share with others about how much you enjoyed that acoustic guitar piece in that one sequence. Keep that in mind should you want to try it out. It's available on Steam right now, and you can find a link to the Steam page in the description below. And once again, big thanks to Introversion Software for letting me look at their game, and thanks for thinking of me. I hope everything works out for you guys in the end. I won't keep you guys any longer. I have a Zelda game to get back to, so I'll get right to that. Thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care.
PragerU, the best thinkers.
Why is this suddenly a thing? Before, when Link got an upgrade to the number of arrows or bombs he could carry, that was that. It was just a number that went up. It wasn't a separate item that Link needed to physically carry. You can't tell me Link can carry all this junk with him no problem, and then place a limit on these items. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's a needless limitation. And because I never bothered with equipping these kind of items, it also sort of undermined the process of collecting materials that could drop from enemies that could be used to upgrade your inventory. Now for dungeon items, I found some use for this, and the bugs I could catch with the net made for some cool potions, but around endgame, I had way more materials than I could count because I didn't feel like carrying the quiver or the bomb bag, and thus the materials needed to upgrade those were just left collecting dust. You may have noticed that little slice of line that appeared next to Link on occasion. Well, that's your new stamina meter. Since you're using the Wiimote for everything sword related, that means the A button is just sitting there all alone, longing for a purpose, and here it is. When you hold the button down, Link can now turn his middling jog into a full-out sprint for a couple of seconds. He can climb up higher than normal ledges, he can climb vines faster, he can climb ladders faster. And initially this mechanic felt oddly constrictive. I guess I was so used to rolling on the ground everywhere without worrying about catching my breath or spinning with my sword all willy-nilly without a care in the world, but now that I had to worry about tiring Link out, it just felt off. However, there are ways to mitigate that with stamina potions, which last a really long time if you have the potion badge equipped, and I found stamina depletion to only be a downside when I needed to backtrack through previously visited areas, which yeah, there's a lot of that in this game to be sure. My god, there's so much of that. But I enjoy the added mobility, and sprinting is considerably faster than just repeatedly rolling. The world design is a double-edged sword for me. I sincerely love Skyward Sword's world and what's in it. The dungeons aren't all the same length as Twilight Princess, but a lot of them are just as interesting if you ask me. And there's some really cool concepts implemented here, like the time stones in the Naru Desert. This shit is just amazing, and I love the type of puzzles it brings. There's a lot of this sort of thing in Skyward Sword, and I love it, but one of Skyward Sword's biggest issues is the size of its world. I mean, besides being sectioned off, it's not very large, and you're not given much to explore off the beaten pathway. As a consequence of that, it won't take long to see everything every world has to offer. Even with the added areas in the second third of the adventure, and despite the interesting gimmicks, it loses its allure after some time, and it's all because the story requires that you head to these areas a large number of times it asks you to. And traveling between the three major areas is so dull, and there's no warp stone to make it any faster, and awfully auto-mission, considering the previous games. Every time you want to travel to the next major area, you gotta take your giant red bird and soar across the skies, and no amount of orchestrated pieces makes this flapping journey any more exciting. Besides a handful of islands, there is nothing else up here bearing a few treasure chests. The Skyloft is really the major place of interest, which is where you start off in, so it's kinda sad to see the first thing you experience in the skies is also the most interesting. This game drained me. It honest to God drained me. And given how many ideas I sincerely enjoyed in this, I felt bad. But this game, considering the size of its world and how much you're railroaded during the main quest, had no business being as long as it was. If it were the same length as, say, Majora's Mask, which had a similar build but left a lot of shit up to the player's discretion, hell, this might have been a contender for my top Zelda game. I truly believe that. But unfortunately, Skyward Sword is too bloated for its own good. Definitely a one-and-done Zelda for me. I adore the presentation. The motion controls aren't so bad after a bit of tinkering. The combat's damn satisfying when you shield bash something just right and lay the smackdown immediately afterwards. The world is truly fascinating, filled with plenty of things to do and see. But how it's structured is the game's biggest downfall, in my opinion. The story wore me down. I love these areas, but after 3 revisits for increasingly arbitrary reasons, no, I'm sorry. I want to move on. And move on I shall, for the last game of the Zelda revisit is easily the biggest one of them all. So, is it a good kind of long? That's what I really want to know. I'm going to need some time for this one, obviously. I'll try not to have you wait too long. Next time is The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night. Take care. Unless it was raining, and then I couldn't do shit until the weather cleared up. When I had enough hearts, I went back to the Lost Woods and pulled out the Master Sword from its pedestal. Never in my life did I ever think they would bring back that concept from Zelda 1, where you needed a certain amount of hearts to get the sword upgrade. It's weird. And certain NPCs you could talk to that ended up being enemies in disguise, that's from Zelda 2. Breath of the Wild is filled with callbacks and references to previous games, a bonus veterans can relish in. I guess they were feeling nostalgic. 30 years is nothing to scoff at. I put about 40-something hours into the game when I felt I was ready to take on Ganon, and I think I overdid it, because Link can climb almost any wall, and with the right Divine Beast power, I breezed right through the whole thing. Literally. I rode the wind with my paraglider and skipped a huge fucking chunk of it all in one fell swoop. Now, I suppose that's the price of freedom, but I'd rather be overprepared than underprepared. Breath of the Wild is something I would like to fully complete one day, and I got a long way to go, apparently. After beating the game, I was only 14% done. But I didn't find it absolutely necessary to complete every shrine, to find every hidden Korok, to max out my armor sets, to find every piece of equipment out there. Who do you think I am? This man? Fuck out of here. I was able to get by just fine with the weapons I managed to find, the concoctions I brewed over an open fire, and having a relatively basic sense of curiosity. True, my adventure did end up being longer than my Skyward Sword run, but unlike previously, that was my choice, and not because of an unnecessarily bloated structure. I did what I wanted, when I wanted, and for Breath of the Wild to achieve that freedom, and allow me to take control of that, for the Zelda franchise, That's undoubtedly amazing, and the attention to detail is second to none. I remember a shrine where I had to carry an ice cube to the goal without having it melt, and sure enough, the challenge was filled with flamethrowers and all that shit. But even at a standstill, I noticed the ice was melting anyway, and I'm thinking, oh wait, why is that happening? I'm nowhere close to the fire pillars, and it took me a minute to realize, oh wait, it's because I have my fire sword on my back. That's annoying, but that's incredible. And I realize, again, if you played an open world game like Breath of the Wild previously, this is really nothing new. It's just Zelda's variation of it. If you're looking for something a little more traditional, Breath of the Wild's radical shift in focus might be a little alienating at first. The fact that your weapons can break, the lack of real dungeons, the almost entirely optional storyline, the unorthodox setup of tools at your disposal, I don't think Breath of the Wild is like going from Mario to Final Fantasy, but don't expect the standard Zelda adventure. Breath of the Wild still recognizes that it's a Zelda game. It's just a different type of Zelda game this time, one that we haven't seen in about 30 years in terms of direction. The world is your oyster in Breath of the Wild, but it's ultimately up to you with what you do with it. This is definitely a keeper, that's for sure. As to where it ranks in my pantheon of Zelda games, that's pretty hard to say at the moment. Like, I don't see myself starting a fresh file on this anytime soon. I'd rather just complete what I already started. But maybe I'll know for sure in a couple of years. But you're sure as hell getting your money's worth now. And there's more content on the way in the form of DLC. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my little Zelda revisits. Next time I decide to go back to the franchise, I'll probably start doing the handheld games, but that won't be for quite some time. I hope you guys understand. And for the next marathon, I mean, what else could it be with that kind of reaction? Kingdom Hearts. Wow, what was the fucking holdup? Given the history of this channel, I don't know, but it's finally here. Kingdom Hearts. I'm going to be doing Kingdom Hearts next for my big marathon. I'll get it started as soon as I can. It's my big summer project essentially. So maybe I'll just throw a couple of like individual reviews before then. But like Kingdom Hearts, get your darkness counters ready. I'm going to go get a fuckload of booze for the type of shit I'm about to step into. But I greatly appreciate you watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care.